Thank you, Pastor. Well, it's always awesome and exciting to be here with you today. I know that God has a word for us today, so I'm excited to get into it. Rob, you know you got me, yes. And then we're going to get into it. Now, last week there was a word that Pastor had spoken and preached about, and I've been here for 4 years. I've never once heard Pastor preach about what he did. And you know that it was God's timing. I have never seen Pastor push people for money. I've never seen him push me for anything. He's always just said, I want people to give out of their own heart. And so I started to think, because I love Ignite. I've been here for 4 years. My family's here. We're connected. And there's been some things that we have gone through that I love that I get to be in that little war story. For example, COVID, when it hit. We couldn't be in the building, and here we were with Pastor Manny and Wally and my brother Jacob, and we're here till, all nights of the hours recording our services, and Wally messed up, so we had to record again. It was probably me. I think there was even one time we acted like we were playing and worshiping, and it was just a track, and Manny was like, we're just gonna do a track. And we had some people, but it was like one of those times, those seasons that I'm so glad that I got to be a part of it, because I get to tell you, like, hey man, we went through this time and it was amazing, and God was just working, and we didn't know what we were gonna get into, but God pushed us through it. I even remember that we didn't want to go into a live service. It was something that we didn't want to do. We brought it up, and hey, no, and then COVID hits, and God's like, now you have to. And so, and there's many other things that I've gone through, and so when I came to Ignite, the building was up, the walls were up, painted, and it's very nice. And I always kind of like get jealous of the people who actually were here to work. The people who actually came and put up the walls and cleaned the dust. And I seen videos where there's brick or something on the walls, and there's just like a drum set on the floor, and there's people like cords all on the floor. There's no stage, and they're worshiping, and I'm like, God, like, man, I would have loved to be a part of that, because I love Ignite and the story and the ministry. I just love it. But last week when Pastor was preaching, and like I said, I've been here for 4 years, and it was the first time that I've heard Pastor preach that way. And it wasn't about him. It wasn't about give me the money. It's about the kingdom. Everything that we give goes back to you in one way, shape, or form. And so God began to tell me, hey, you always question, you always wonder why you weren't here. And the reason why is because I was preparing this house for you. And I could not believe it. Like, God thought about me when this house was being prepared. See, I wasn't ready to show up. Yeah, last time I preached, I talked about how your stories could be so much different. If I would have walked in and seen everything torn down, I probably would have been like, I don't know about this church. And I would have walked right out. My wife has taught me how to have things of quality. And when I came to this church, I could tell that they loved the house and they took care of it. They wanted it to look nice. And so when I first came here, after everything had been done, God was preparing that moment, so that when I walked in, it was prepared. Now, I'm not saying that the pastors did it for me because they didn't know me. Nobody did it for me specifically because they didn't know me. But they did it for people like me and you. And so when you think about sowing to the kingdom, think about that person that's going to walk in to that new building, that young person that's going to walk in and say, hey, do you have a basketball gym here? This is where I want to play. I have a center where my kids can connect. Think about those people that are going to be walking in because of what you sowed to the kingdom. So, like I said, it was just awesome to hear God. I felt a little special. I'm not going to lie. I'm like, oh, you did all this for me? Nice. And it's just awesome to know that someone's going to walk into this church one day, and God's preparing us now for them. And it's just amazing to know that. So today we are going to be talking about sowing into the kingdom through service. And one particular story kept coming up to me. But before we get into it, I want to just ask you a question, just to kind of think about it. What if you had 24 to 48 hours to live? What would you do? Think about it. Some of you would take out the bucket list and I'm going to go skydiving. Or I'm going to go be with family. Or maybe not. I don't know, depending on your family. You would just really think about it. And those things that are important to you, you would want to do. I want to take a look at what Jesus did in his final hours. We're going to see that before Jesus was crucified, we're going to see what he chose to do before that moment. In the Gospel of Luke, we see that Jesus wanted to spend the Passover with his disciples, and Passover was this like a holiday, and you can kind of compare it to Christmas, where it was like everyone got together and there was a feast. And Jesus wanted to spend it with his closest buddies. But as he's just celebrating with them, it doesn't turn out the way that he thinks. It doesn't turn out that the way maybe he wanted it to turn out. The disciples start getting into an argument with each other. How many of us been at a family gathering and all of a sudden family members just start arguing? Yeah? Oh, nobody. My family's perfect. So they start arguing, and we've been there. We're like, man, this is not how I wanted it to go. Jesus wanting to spend time with them, but they began to argue, and there's some things that happen. Jesus had every right to get up and say, you know what? I don't got time for this. I don't got to be here. I don't got to be here with these people arguing. He could have got up and left. Yet, Jesus does something unexpected. He does something unexpected. He kneels and he washes his disciples' feet. Washing feet was a custom that was done because back then they would walk everywhere. And so your feet would get dirty and you would be tired. And the host would say, hey, do you want your feet washed? And they would wash their feet, but they wouldn't do it. The host wouldn't do it. They would say, hey, servant, wash his feet. Jesus chose to wash their feet. And when we read about Jesus and we know his life and we know everything he's done, we might say like, yeah, that sounds like Jesus. It's not surprising. It sounds like something Jesus would do. But there was more to it. It wasn't just about washing their feet. It wasn't just about serving. There was more to it. Jesus knew that if he humbled his heart, he would open a doorway for his Father to pour his power and presence in him. If he approached the situation humbly, he would open that door to his heart, because guess what? He was about to endure the greatest suffering any man has ever endured. And Jesus, as well as me and you, needed the strength of his Father. If he would have left in pride, saying, I don't need to sit here and watch this. I don't need to sit here and deal with this. I'm out of here. He would have closed his heart because of his feelings, of his emotions. When we serve other people, God serves you. He knew that if he served others, God would give him what he needs for what he's about to go through. I want to read John 13:15 through 17. It says, therefore, let us offer through Jesus a continuous sacrifice of praise to God, proclaiming our allegiance to his name. And don't forget to do good and to share with those in need. These are sacrifices that please God. Obey your spiritual leaders and do what they say. Jesus is saying, when you serve others, God gives you favor. There's blessing when you serve other people. There's favor that will come upon your life when you serve other people. And some of you might say, Well, shouldn't I do it without expecting something back? Shouldn't you just serve people and not want something back? I don't know about you, but every time that God has blessed me, it has affected those who are closest to me. Every time that God pours his blessings over me, he pours his blessing over my wife. Every time that he pours his blessings over me, they affect my kids. So when you are serving, God will say, hey, there's favor, and he would pour that favor over you, and the people around you would be blessed because of what you chose to do. You'll automatically become a blessing to those around you when you serve. Joseph, the story of Joseph, constantly put into situations that were just messed up. Constantly put into situations, but Joseph chose to serve no matter where he was at, no matter what the reason why he was there. He chose to serve. And in the end, he was not only blessed abundantly, but he was able to bless his family. Many times you'll encounter situations where you want to retaliate. And I'm going to grab something that I have here. And just bear with me. This thing here. Who knows what this is? Lightsaber. Okay, this is a sword, not a lightsaber. I don't have a sword. So many times we have this carried with us. And everywhere that we go and everything that we do, we're ready to use it, to fight back, to fight people, to swing this at them. You'll encounter situations where you want to retaliate because you're angry. So you carry this. Just this week, I had someone who I was entrusting betray me. And it was hard because the first thing that I grabbed was this sword. I was angry. I was upset. And God says, put the sword down and grab a towel. And I'm like, what? God, they betrayed me. They hurt me. I did nothing wrong. And God says, put the sword down, pick up the towel. I wanted to swing this sword, but God's voice was telling me. I said, God, I don't know how to do that. He burned his bridge, and God says, you build that bridge back up. You build it back up. And so I did, and it was not easy. But we will walk around with the sword, ready to swing it at the first person who offends us, at the first person who we think is not deserving of it, of our love, of our service. When you serve someone, God gives you favor. John 13:3 and 4 says, Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. Jesus knew he was empowered. He knew that he would return to the Father. But when Jesus served, he was fulfilling his purpose. When you begin to serve other people, God will reveal your purpose. When you serve other people, God will reveal your purpose. You won't ever be fulfilled with a talent, with money, with friends. You will never be fulfilled by that. We are most, and Brother Wally told me this yesterday, we are most like Christ when we serve. Jesus came and all he did was serve. All he taught many things, but one of the biggest things that he taught was to serve. You experience true fulfillment when you serve other people. There is a quote by a man named Brian Stevenson. It says, mercy is most empowering, liberating, and transformative when it is directed at the undeserving, the people who haven't earned it, who haven't even sought it, are the most meaningful recipients of our compassion. Brian Stevenson was a lawyer who graduated from Harvard. During his time, he experienced a situation where people couldn't help themselves. And the specific group was people who were on death row. People who were going to get the chair, who were in jail just waiting till they would get killed. And nobody would hear them out. Many of them were wrongfully accused. And this guy with a Harvard degree decides, I'm going to help them. I'm going to serve them because they can't help themselves. And he begins to help them. It wasn't easy for Brian. He was mistreated. He was abused. They did things to him. But no matter what happened, he went back to serving people because that was his purpose. He's helped hundreds of people get out of death row who were wrongly accused. But he didn't give up. He didn't look at, man, I can't go through that. I got to watch out for myself. I have a Harvard degree. I can use it to make money. I can use it to do this. I can use it to do that. But he says, no, I'm going to serve those who can't help themselves. For those who don't have a voice right now. For those who have no future, those are the people that I'm going to serve. He found his purpose through serving. John 13:2 says, the evening meal was in progress and the devil had already prompted Judas and the son of Simon to betray Jesus. Can you imagine what he was going through right now? His disciples are fighting. He knows those that are going to betray them. He knows. He knows that those who have already betrayed him. He knew the suffering was about to come. He knew he was about to go through the greatest suffering that any man has ever experienced. He knew it. But he does something unexpected. I don't know about you. But when I know someone's betrayed me, when I know something's about to happen, the last thing I want to do is serve them. The last thing I want to do is help them. The last thing I want to do is do something for them. But Jesus, he takes a towel. Takes a towel. He takes off his outer garment, wraps the towel around him, and he gets kneeled, and he begins to wash feet. He begins to get one foot and dust it off. Wash, dry, and then the next foot. Dust it off, wash, dry it. He chose to take the towel. And it wasn't just one disciple. It wasn't just two. It was all the disciples. This master, this teacher, healer, man full of wisdom, kneels to wash their feet. But here's the crazy part. As he's going one by one, washing their feet, he comes to the man that has betrayed him, Judas. Jesus knows that he betrayed him. Judas knows that Jesus knows. But he still kneeled and washed his feet. Dusted it off. Washed and dried. Knowing what he had done, knowing what was about to happen, and he still washed his feet. Jesus knew that Judas was going to betray him. But he also knew that when he served Judas, he would break the power of the enemy over himself. When you serve, God breaks the power of the enemy over you. When you serve, God breaks the power of the enemy over you. There's no way that a seed could be planted of frustration, of anger, of negative thoughts, of retaliation. There's no way, because you're serving. There was no hold of frustration. There was no anger that would even dare touch Jesus because of what he chose to do. No enemy hold was over him because he chose to serve. You will go throughout your day, every day, like this, with the towel and with the sword. You will go through your day like this. And sometimes you'll encounter situations and you bust this sword out and you start swinging away. Someone betrays you and you start swinging away. Someone talks to you the wrong way and you start swinging away. But you still have a towel. If there's something you leave here today with, it's put down the sword so that you can have the towel in both hands. And when something arises, that you would choose to serve. You see, it requires both hands to use this towel. And it's not pretty. Serving's not pretty. Serving gets dirty. Serving gets a little ugly. But put down that sword and start to carry this towel through every opportunity. Get down and serve. As the story goes, hours after, in the Garden of Gethsemane, Judas comes back and Peter, out of anger. If you don't know the story, Peter takes a sword and he swings it at the servant and cuts his ear off. And he chops it off. And Jesus tells him, hey, don't do that. Put the sword down. Don't fight like that. Put the sword down. Even though he was fighting for Jesus, he then goes to deny Jesus several times. And Jesus goes, you know the story, Jesus goes and dies on the cross. After this happened, Peter goes back to his previous lifestyle, I guess you could say, and he's fishing and kind of back into the routine of things. And there's a situation, or there's something that happens, and Jesus goes to see some of the disciples, and he shows up, and he asks Peter. Now, this is the last conversation he would have with him. I don't know about you, but that tells you the importance of what was about to be said. This was the last conversation. I don't know if any of you have experienced a last conversation with a loved one, but it's utterly important. But Jesus comes to him and he says, Peter, do you love me? Peter says, yes, Jesus, I do. Without a doubt, I do. He says, well, feed my people. Peter, do you love me? Yes, God, I do. Yes. Yes, Jesus, I love you. Then feed my people. Ask him for a third time, do you love me? Jesus says, you know this. Peter says, Jesus, you know this. You know that I love you. Jesus says, serve my people. Jesus knew that if Peter would put down his sword of frustration and anger, that he would put down the hurt that he experienced, the past experiences that hurt him, that damaged him, and if he would just pick up a towel and start to serve people, he would find his purpose. He would receive the goodness of God's grace, the forgiveness, and he could move forward, and that no power of the enemy could hold him back. Why don't you stand to your feet today?